come to personal finance, I'm Gugulethu Cele. As you can tell, we come to you from a very different setting today, from one of the most populous and historic townships in South Africa, Soweto. Now today at Maponya Mall, the South African Savings Institute, together with other stakeholders, gathered today to take a look at the very low savings rate and culture in South Africa, and hopefully work towards finding plausible and implementable solutions. I sat down with two gentlemen, Darmesh, Bhana, head of retail funding at Nedbank, to get his views on how that particular financial institution is working to address the dire financial needs of South Africans' pockets.
I think one of the first things before we get into any of the instruments is about people changing their discipline and psyche towards savings. I think South Africa has gone into a credit environment where we sort of lend stuff and we try and just buy a whole bunch of material goods when it doesn't actually help where we need to go as a society. Taking that into account, in terms of progressing savings in South Africa, Nedbank's got a couple of tools that we do help people with. One of them is My Financial Life, and that's available to all South Africans in the country, no matter who you are, on our website. And it's basically an aggregated tool. It takes everything that you have in your financial life, puts it all together and helps you analyze what you're spending on, what you're saving on, etc. In the kids space, we've got My Money Map, which is also online and helps parents teach their kids to save. You might have chores, etc., that you need your kids to do, and you could use the tool to manage that as well. Other things that we do as a bank is, we have a program which we call Teach Children to Save, where we go into schools and we help teaching children to save. Also, supporting that is Entrepreneur Days in schools, where we're part of the curriculum. Kids actually do a whole bunch of stuff, understand what a business is, understand things like capital, understand things like profit. So the terms that are used in business, and getting people to actually become entrepreneurs within South Africa.
So financial education quite clearly at the fore here.
It very much is in Nedbank, yeah.
Having said that, I want to draw a link between the informal savings environment together with formal South African institutions like yourselves at Nedbank. How far are we making progress with that? And maybe if you can walk us through some of the highlights from Nedbank.
Yeah, I think, in terms of the informal savings, or what we see traditionally in sort of the communities around Stockvels as an example, where it is in a way sort of informal and not through the banking sector. We've looked to address that by actually launching something called a club account at Nedbank, which I'd like to say that's best in market, where we do allow people to save, where we need 3 people to come in and we need a constitution for your Stockvel or your club or whatever that may be, but you can then have as many members as you want contributing towards this club account, and we actually have no fees on the account. So you could withdraw money and you could deposit money, and we're not going to charge you additional fees for any of that. And we'd also pay you an interest on the balances in that club account as well. Barring the actual club account, we've also, any of our investment products, you can actually use for collective savings purposes. So that's one of the ways we've looked to bridge sort of the informal and the formal environment. We've also done a whole bunch of Stockvel expos as an example, at retailers, big retailers like Macro, etc., where we'd go out and sort of be there for the community when they are buying the big mass purchase at the end of the year, to actually tell them about Nedbank is here to actually offer you a club account or Stockvels, or we actually offer collective investments, because a lot of the time consumers don't associate banks with this sort of Stockvel environment, which really is a play that we in a big way.
And that also makes sense, because instead of them carrying large amounts of cash to the shopping premises, all they need to do is swipe with their particular club card.
Well, that's right. So there is an access mechanism, and you need to have a transactional product to access the cash, obviously, whereas the club account is more of an investment type of offering. But yeah, I think it's working quite well. I'm not going to say how much imbalances we've got in there. I might be giving away a bit of competitive advantage. But it is a market that we've made slow progress in, and we'd look to obviously do a lot more in that market.
There was also a key issue that you highlighted today, which is access to advice. And again, financial institutions like Nedbank have certified financial planners or advisors available on the floor. And I think that's maybe something that a lot of people aren't aware of, because they always associate advice coming at a cost or with a product offering.
Yes. I've always said that no matter what your education or what you've qualified at or how much money you've got, what do you do with it? And there's no right answer. There isn't a right answer. It's like, it's all dependent on the individual, and their risk appetite as to what they'd like to invest in. And we continue to make big investments in our financial planners, in our bankers, in educating our bankers so that they phase accredited. And really, people, it's not going to cost anyone anything to walk in and just have a conversation. They don't have to sign up for anything. Just come in, even play with the tool, My Financial Life. It'll give you some view as to what you need to be doing.
That was my conversation with Darmesh Bhana. Let's take a look at what John Manyike, Head of Consumer Education at Old Mutual, had to say.
Old Mutual has always been a staunch advocate of National Savings Month. I mean, this is the month that presents us with an opportunity to elevate the messages about saving. Why is it important to save? I mean, given the challenge we have as South Africans, because we are more of spenders than savers. So at Old Mutual, to enable positive futures, we offer financial education in the communities, in corporates, to try and help people understand why it's important to manage money and to live within their means. And the Savings Month definitely gives us that opportunity to do that.
One of the reports that Old Mutual conducts, or a survey rather, is with regard to the sandwich generation. Maybe if you can give us more highlights on that. Are we seeing a reduction in the numbers regarding the savings generation at the moment?
Yeah. Okay, perhaps maybe one can start by explaining what is this sandwich generation.
Yes.
To start off, you see, the sandwich generation is a phenomenon that actually contextualizes a situation where you find individuals who are sandwiched between having to provide for their aging parents as well as their children and extended family. While there's nothing wrong with helping and supporting parents and children and extended family, but the minute it stops you from saving for your retirement or saving for children's education, then we have a problem there. Because we're going to have a situation where we have an uneducated society. If we're bringing up these children and we're not able to support them financially through education savings to enable them to actually pursue their careers, we're going to have a problem. We're not going to be able to solve the structural unemployment problem that we have if we're not able to do that. And secondly, if we're not able to save for retirement, it simply means that the burden on the state to provide for pension or some kind of a grant is going to become a problem. At some point, it's going to become unaffordable. So we need to deal with this issue of sandwich generation in a manner that we educate them to understand the unintended consequence of being part of the sandwich generation.
Something else that has recently come to the floor is black tax.
Yeah.
And I take it there's also a misconception as to what exactly that is, but maybe walk us through the concept and how it affects consumers.
Yeah, a black tax is the same thing as a sandwich generation, but very, coined recently, again to refer to the same thing of being caught up having to provide for the two generation. But black tax is not a black thing, contrary to what some people think, because they interpret the term in its literal sense. Black tax again is about feeling that societal pressure to provide for the loved ones. I was born a kilometer away from this mall here in Klipspruit, and when I left Soweto in 2000, every time I come to visit, I meet my aunts, my uncles, and they always remind me, your mother, at the time she was a domestic worker, she used to leave you with us to take care of you. So I always felt this obligation that I need to help. But I learned to master the art of breaking my banknotes into coins, to try and accommodate this community all of a sudden who have an expectation. So now that's black tax. The problem is that you never know when is it enough. You keep paying and so on. And here's an interesting concept. When you go to a plane, they say to you, in the unlikely event of cabin pressure, put the oxygen mask on yourself first. And the reason for that is because you cannot give what you don't have. And this is why it's important to also save for rainy days, because you cannot give what you don't have.
Another theme that came up today during the panel discussion was the link between the informal and formal savings environment. And would that be referring to Stockvels, which are a common phenomenon here in Soweto and any other township? How are we going about in making progress between these two?
I think we need to deal with this whole concept of Stockvels and understand what is saving in a true sense of being saving. Because when you have these activities where Stockvels would buy coupons, or this is what we call in the township Masiholisana. This is a concept where people, I don't know how to put it, but it's like you're putting money in a pool. Say 1,000 rand, you've got 10 people putting money in a pool on a monthly basis. That's 10,000 rand a month. But that money rotates. This month, it's this one's turn. Next month, it's somebody else's turn. Now the question is that, is it really saving? My view is that it's really not saving, because firstly, it's short term. Secondly, there's no interest. You're still getting 10,000 10 months down the line without any interest. Whereas if you put that money somewhere in an interest-bearing account, you probably could have had some form of interest there. But again, what do you use the money for? What are you saving for? And more often than not, that money tends to be used for something else other than essential items that we need.
And that brings us to the end of this special edition of Personal Finance, where we've been coming to you from Maponya Mall in Soweto. Do be sure, though, to send us your feedback. Get in touch via Twitter using the account name at CNBC Africa, #Finance410, or to myself at Gugulethu. Until next time, though, happy saving.